let me introduce myself. I'm James Kubel, Brandie's husband. And one of the things that I want to discuss tonight is just kind of what this class is going to be about. So give people an idea what I plan to cover, and as well as why. Because one of the things that I went through when I lost my sight, I was a very visual player, played guitar very visually, and I almost had to relearn a lot of things when I lost my sight, and so learning to play without looking at your instrument is a really important thing. And so when we get involved in this music theory, I don't believe that I want to throw at you a lot of things to memorize, because that's the quickest way for you to forget it. I've learned my background is in engineering and mathematics, and engineers are taught to pay attention to detail, but I have found patterns in things, especially in music. I started playing in 1980, and if you do the math, that's quite a few years. And what I've realized is there's a lot of things that we could take advantage of as blind people and learn this material quite easily if we just have some of the fundamentals. And what I'm trying to bring to the program is really, I want to get us all on the same page, at least when we jam together and we play instruments. If we're all talking the same language, the same nomenclature, then I think we'll be able to explore more things, and I think we'll even sound better, and we'll have more fun. A lot of people believe that music theory is rules to music, and really what it does is it makes music predictable, especially when you're listening to somebody else play. You can predict their next move, not perfectly, but you can get a good idea of where they're going to go based on a few fundamental rules. And no matter how complex the music gets, these basics will apply if you were to go and get a degree in music theory. This is all good stuff to start with, and it makes, I think it makes music more pleasurable because you can join in easier, and you have a basic understanding of what some people are talking about. One thing I'll touch on is that most things that we remember are things that affect us emotionally. You can read and study a list forever, but if there's something about it that strikes you emotionally, chances are it's almost effortless that you'll remember it. So music in itself will help us in that journey, because if it affects you emotionally, you'll remember it. So we're going to try to tie some of those things about music together, so this isn't a painful challenge for people, that they can actually enjoy learning it. I will use a lot of analogies, mainly for people that are visually impaired. Doesn't mean that sight won't help you at all if you have some, but I'm going to try to use analogies where people can kind of relate and hopefully remember it. It's and I really encourage the feedback. That means everybody. If there's something that I didn't explain well, or maybe somebody might even offer a better analogy, but so that people can make visual images of things, it makes it helpful in trying to remember some of the things that we need to remember to begin with. Once we get through, the first area I'm going to touch on is sound, just sound. What is sound and its properties? But I plan to take it much further than that, but we'll go into notes, which are really labels of sounds. And I will take it into how to build chords, how to build triads, intervals, circle of fifths, minor keys, major keys, modes, all those things I plan to touch on, but to give it to you in a way that it will make sense easily and it won't be a big effort to remember it. And remember that I don't memorize all the keys. I only remember one key, and I can get to any key from that key just by remembering one key. I'll show you that technique that you'll never have to wonder what notes are played, what chords are played. It's quite simple once you learn just one key, and that will be the key of C, fundamental key. So with that, I'll start with one of the first areas I'd like to talk about is sound. What is sound? Well, everybody can relate to sound by if you hit something, but we need to be able to, you bang on something, you hear it out of your speaker. We all know that is sound, but we have to identify with really four major properties of sound that we're going to use from here to the end to describe music. And those four properties are: one, frequency or pitch; two is intensity, volume; dynamics. Those are all words that they use. But we mainly think, is it loud? Is it soft? Is it medium volume? Third one, duration. How long do we play a sound? We're going to do a lot with timing. And the absence of a sound is still important. So we have to have ways to describe how long the sound plays, as well as how long there's a silence. And we'll get into that when we talk about timing. And the last one is timbre. And a lot of times you don't hear people talking about the timbre, but what the timbre is it's the tonality of a sound, the texture, and that's where we get into, well, is that a sad sound? And some people, will use other analogies like color of sound, and is it dark? And we'll talk about timbre and how it will describe certain sounds. And then that's the four main properties of sound that we're going to talk about. And we're going to go past sound pretty quickly, but we'll constantly refer to pitch. But what we're really talking about is frequency. And that one I'll spend a little bit of time tonight, So with that, any comments so far? Melody, Randy, any thoughts?
I'm trying to unmute. No.
You're good.
I'm fine. No, Randy, anything?
Yeah, I do. So can you explain a little bit more what do you mean by the difference between tonality and pitch?
Well,
what's the difference?
We know that a pitch is, to say that they're not interrelated, they are. But when we're talking about pitch, we're more directly speaking about a note. When we talk about a tonality, we're usually talking about more than one note. Okay, so if I say, raise your pitch, you're going to say, okay, well, what note do you want me to raise? Or rarely will I say raise the pitch of your chord, because that means change the chord.
Okay.
You follow me?
Yeah.
So let's talk about, are you with us so far?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm with you. I got it.
You have any questions, Melody?
No, because I got the pitch and the tone.
You know what a chord
You got
is?
the
Yeah.
pitch and the tone. So
And the what?
Just what he meant by
do you
the
know
word
what a chord
chord.
is?
No, go ahead with the chord.
Okay, so a chord is if we play one note, then we call it a note. But if we play more than one note, we really call it a chord. Now, there could be 2-note chords, but most chords are based on 3 notes. And they're obviously at different pitches. Because if they were all at the same pitch, we wouldn't really call them a chord. We'd just say, that's 3 notes at the same pitch, you know. So when we're talking of chords, we're talking about roughly 3 or more notes. And we'll get more into that a little bit later.
The chord is almost the same as the tone then? Or we're talking about different levels of notes?
Okay, so a tone, a chord, a tone, and a pitch. Let's explain what the difference is.
Yeah, because I got the pitch and the tone. Okay.
Okay, so pitch is relative to frequency, and that's something I'm going to get into a bit about what is a frequency.
Mm-hmm.
But a note has a frequency, and so we can, and that's very specific. And it also, frequency and pitch are really the same thing. But when you get into tones, if you had a pure tone, then you could say it's exactly the same as a note. But because we get into blending more than one note right away in music, it's pretty quick that when we're talking about tones, we'll usually just call those notes. And when we get into chords, that's when we'll really talk about tonality and tones. So for now, let's just refer to a single sound as a note and multiple sounds as a chord. And that chord has some kind of flavor, and that is its tonality.
Okay.
Okay?
I got it now. Okay.
And we'll get into some of the more specifics of tone in its singular form, but for right now, that's where we'll leave it. One thing that I want to talk about though is frequency, and a lot of people have trouble with frequency. So let's go back to what is a sound. A sound is really it starts from a source that is a vibration. And we could get very technical about everything involved in that. And that's not my objective here. It's just to make you aware that what occurs is that you have a source that's creating the sound, and somehow it makes it to your ear. And it does that through a sound wave. And that sound wave, you could think of like the ocean, like a wave. That kind of up and down motion in the ocean is kind of a good visual of what a sound wave looks like. And there's a lot of similarities. And the reason I want to discuss it is because we really need to understand what frequency means. So that's why I'm going through these analogies a little bit, so that I can give you some kind of reference to what frequency is. If you were to take a guitar and lay it on the ground so that its strings are facing the ceiling, it's on its back, and you were to pluck a string, pull it up and let go of it, that string would vibrate. It would go up and down. And it going up and down is really what frequency is all about. Because the faster it goes up and down, the higher the frequency. The slower it goes, the lower the frequency. Now, it just so happens on a guitar, we don't change how fast it goes up and down by trying to pull it and push it up and down as quickly. We pluck it, and it is attached at the very, very top of the guitar and at the very bottom of the guitar, and it's always going to go up and down at the same frequency until we come along and put our finger on the neck, and we make the distance between our finger and the back of the guitar shorter. And now that thing will vibrate faster. Is everybody with me so far?
Yeah.
Hi. Yes.
Are you with me, Randy?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so, and because I don't know, either of your experience as far as really how it's talked about for a lot of people, it's a sine wave, but a lot of people don't know what that means. And really what it means is it goes up, down, and back to level one time. And frequency is measured in how many times it does that in 1 second. So if it went up, down, and back to normal, back to no movement at all, 2 times in 1 second, we would say that the frequency is 2 or 2 hertz, which is cycles per second. Well, the whole musical scale is based on frequencies. If you look at a piano, the very lowest key is an A note, and you go all the way up to the highest key, and that is a C note. But all we're doing in music is we're taking sounds and we're arranging them in time. And of course, technically, anything you play is music because you arranged sounds in time. It's only good or bad music to either yourself or observers, but it's all considered music. So if we can understand a little bit of, how to organize those frequencies a little bit, those pitches, then we can better understand how they relate to each other. And we can make, sounds that sound good to our ears, as well as multiple sounds that sound good to our ears.
Is that why the thickest string is a lower frequency and the thinner string is a higher frequency?
Yeah, it has everything to do of the weight of that string and its density of how well it vibrates up and down. Heavier strings
that makes sense.
Don't vibrate as easily as thinner or lighter strings, right? So, and even if you change the gauge of your strings, what you don't realize is for you to bring a guitar in tune, there are actual different tensions, and the tensions change, but we bring them into sounds that we like, the standard tuning, or even different tunings, but that are pleasable to the ear, but still they all have to be at a certain tension.
Cool.
How are we doing, Randy?
We're doing great. Keep going.
Okay.
Not asleep yet?
No. Keep
Perfect.
moving. We're at 6:29.
So, okay.
Perfect.
So when we talk about this frequency, we're talking about how this goes through one cycle, this up and down sine wave. And if that was perfect, just a perfect, really smooth up and down, a perfect sine wave that they would say, then that would be a pure tone. It wouldn't be blended with anything. And unfortunately, that's almost impossible to create. It is impossible for all technical reasons, but it is. But there's certain things about any frequency we pick that that are relative to itself. So let's take.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
When I keep thinking when you say up and down, you mean like because I'm thinking up and down the whole guitar, but not just from almost like side to side. What?
Yeah,
That's not the
yeah.
up and down, right?
I'll give you.
You're talking about in between the strings.
No, I wasn't talking about side to side. I was talking about actual physical up and down. But think about this. Have you ever ridden a roller coaster?
Yeah.
Okay. Imagine that you're going up the hill on the roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to the top. And that's the peak.
Right.
And then you start to go down. And let's say you get down to almost where the height that you started at.
Mm-hmm.
And the ground opened up. And you actually went into the ground as far as you went up the big hill, that same distance.
I think because that's what I had thought, but I think I got confused when she asked about the different sizes of the string.
Okay, well, but that's the actual vision I want you to have, is that roller coaster vision of going up the hill, down the hill. And
I confused her.
No, that's okay though. That's kind of.
Okay, I got that part. Okay.
So you go from underneath the ground back up to ground level, and that's one cycle.
Okay, I got you.
Or 1
And
hertz.
So,
right?
or 1 hertz. If you actually did that whole maneuver in 1 second, that would be 1 hertz. 1 cycle in 1 second is 1 hertz. So let's say that you, in 1 second, you actually went up, down, and back to normal, and went 2 cycles. Now you're at 2 hertz.
Mm-hmm.
And all frequencies are based on 1 second.
Okay.
That's the reference. It's all relative to 1 second. So, and that's how we rate frequencies. But what confuses people is that's not the speed of sound.
Who's that eating?
That's not me.
Sorry.
Okay.
That's me. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
That isn't the speed of sound. And that can confuse a lot of people. They think, well, I've heard about planes traveling at the speed of sound. Well, now if we're talking about speed, if I pick that roller coaster track up and I moved it at 770 miles an hour while you were on your little car going up and down that little roller coaster, now you're moving at the tree. Now your sound is moving at the speed of sound. That's how fast sound gets from the source to your ear.
It's 700 and what?
770 miles an hour.
At sea level.
Fast. At sea level, yes. Well, actually, that's above sea. I think it's 660 at sea level. Changes as you go up. But regardless, it's but what we're concerned with is really that cycle, just that down up. Because in music, why is this important? Well, we talk about octaves, and octaves are either doubling the frequency or taking half the frequency. If you play an A note at 440 hertz, which is a standard frequency of an A note, if you play another A, an octave apart, take a guess. Where is it going to be?
Okay, say it again. What you said, the octave is either double or what?
It's either double or 1/2.
Oh, okay.
So if I play another note at 880 hertz, that's still an A note.
It's just in higher register.
But I played it. It's just 1 octave apart. So if I go an A and an octave apart, I doubled the frequency if I went up in pitch. And I lowered the frequency if I went down an octave, which would be where? Half of 440.
Would be 220.
220.
Yeah.
And actually, if I went down another half to
110.
110,
Sounds like voltage.
all A notes. Yeah.
So just something you said earlier, you were talking about like chords and you said they're different notes. And then you said, well, if you play, and I didn't say anything, I was wondering if that's what you were talking about with octaves, going from A to A or B to B. Let me see.
Well, and we will discuss that more because really the whole point of frequency, the whole point of describing frequency is so that I can begin to discuss notes, and which is our next section that I plan to get involved with. So here's something that you just gotta remember, and that is that sounds in music are just labelings. We use them with the letters, but we're labeling a certain sound.
Okay.
And look at how big our alphabet is, 26 characters, right? Well, you know that most people know that there isn't notes A through Z. There is only 7 notes in any scale you will ever play. Only 7. What happens when you hit the 8th note?
That's an octave. It goes back to A.
You change an octave?
Wherever,
that's right.
Yeah, wherever.
It goes back to A.
Yeah.
Wherever you started, right?
Wherever you started.
So if you start on any note, whatever note you start on, if you go 8 spaces, you're back to the same note. So that's why, it's important to discuss frequency, because that's really relative to notes and all the tuners that people buy and everything. One tuner that I will mention that I used to use quite a bit was called Talking Tuner. And it's a free app, and I recommend that you download it. And not for as much tuning an instrument, but just so you could take that app and hum. You'll find out that you naturally hum an E note, It's what humans naturally hum. But remember that the musical alphabet is just a labeling of these sounds. And it's something that I think is important because every 8 notes we get a repeat. Both on piano and on the keyboard. And it just so happens that I don't think it was a coincidence that they started the very lowest key on the piano at A. Because if I was going to do the labeling, I wouldn't have started that at C. I would have said, no, we'll start it at A. Because that's the very first letter, and it's going to be our very first sound. We'll start it at A.
I didn't even know that it started at A, but that's kind of cool.
Which it started in 1000 AD was when, I looked it up, was when the first labeling of sounds started. Because remember, people sang way before they started creating instruments, but it's a great way to think of it. It's a great way to remember it too. You start at A and you just march up the keyboard. Each key is higher in pitch, higher in frequency. And after a while, you'll realize that we're not talking frequency in music very often. We just talk about its pitch, but it's the same thing. It's relating to its frequency.
Cool.
So what does it mean to be in pitch?
It means you're not telling me, hey, honey, you're out of pitch.
If you're singing, what would you say it was? A was 440, and you're singing at 450, you'd be sharp, right?
Exactly. But more importantly, what if what if you were singing at 880?
That's a different higher register. So, okay. So is that in pitch, or is that because then you get into the
Yes.
key of the song, don't you? Okay.
It's just the higher octave up.
Okay.
You're an octave up, but you're still in pitch. Pitch would be off of that anywhere of the octaves,
Got it.
including the fundamental. Howdy, Shane.
Hi there.
We're talking music.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm so late.
Hey, Shane.
Hi, Brandie. I couldn't get in through the link. It was waiting, and
Oh,
so
wow.
finally, I just rebooted and I just opened Zoom and entered the meeting ID manually, and that's how I got in finally.
Oh, cool.
So
Oh.
who else is all there? Randy, Jim, Brandie,
Melody.
Melodi.
And Melody.
hi, Melody. Hi.
Hi. That's how I had to get into because it wouldn't let me in the other way. I had to do it manually.
I think it was something in the way I copied and
Well,
pasted
isn't it
something,
great
folks. Sorry about
that you knew how to do that?
Yeah, we was having so
Way
much
to go,
problems earlier.
Melody. I'm going to put that in your lesson note.
Got those tech skills.
Tell Sandy because we couldn't get it to working earlier. I mean, Sam.
I'll let Sam know.
So what have you guys been talking about?
Frequency and
Melody.
Yes.
Tell them what we've been talking about.
Oh man, we've been talking about the pitch and the notes, the frequency, and how the chord is multiple. Let me see, multiple, more than one note, right? And then
You're paying attention, Melody. You're paying attention.
Boy, I was gonna say, have you been taking notes, or you just recalling that?
She has.
I'm taking notes, and it's horrible because my handwriting is weird, and I can barely see.
Typing skills.
Good. Yeah, I mean, good for you for making the effort. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So just to bring Shane up to speed where we're at now, because Shane does have quite a bit of musical experience, I discussed the 4 properties of sound. I discussed pitch, frequency, intensity,
Duration.
That's 4.
And what was the last one, Randy?
Timbre.
It is 4.
Timbre.
Timbre.
Color, yeah.
Oh, timbre.
Color,
Timbre.
texture. Yeah. Yep. I'm
what we're
taking
kind
notes.
So what we're talking about is right now really is we're kind of paying a little bit of extra attention to frequency, what it is, how we can discuss it. And really in music, we say that we discuss it as pitches, but they're one and the same in music, but really the technical term is it's frequency. And because several notes have, different frequencies, that is important to how they relate to each other. But other than that, that's as far as we will go with it. We need to know that if we double the frequency, which is essentially doubling the pitch, that's an octave. Or if we half the frequency, that's still an octave. And why is it an octave? Well, every 7 notes, there's 7 notes in any scale. And once we hit that 8th note, it's a repeat of the note we were on. It's an octave.
Got it.
I'm with you so far.
So, Melody, questions? Any questions?
No, I'm with yeah.
All right. Yeah, because we have 15 more minutes, and I don't want to go off into the next section until next time, which we're going to talk. Next time we're going to talk more about notes, this labeling scheme. How notes are labeled, because they are labeled sounds. And rather than getting really involved in the musical staff, because much harder to read as a blind person. And I've always been, I wouldn't say I've been down on it, but I don't know how to read Braille with my tongue and play my guitar yet. So,
He's working on it though.
and you kind of, because the Braille gets soggy, you kind of erase your music as you play it.
Yeah.
So you only get one playing of the music. So that's, but I do want to talk about the staff, the grand staff, just a little bit to give people a little bit idea what it is as far as musical notation. And one thing I'll let everybody know is I've developed really kind of my own musical notation that's just using this simple keys on your keyboard I've done it for guitar, but it's kind of how I take my own notes. If I were to jot down notes of a song or something, I'll share it with people. I also will share kind of like a syllabus of what I plan to cover, and that could morph or evolve over time. I'm going to spend quite a bit of time on keys and major and minor keys, and some of those things, but we're just right now getting some of the basic building blocks so we can talk about some of this other stuff. And one important thing I will let you know is that I have found quite easy ways to link these things up, especially on a guitar, that it's not a big job of memorization. I want you to be able to figure this out without having to memorize a bunch of stuff. That was something that, it's pretty painful at times. And even when I've gone and used YouTube or applications like that, I'll learn how to play a song that I like, and I'll have somebody break it down. And the first thing they say is, yeah, put your hands here and then strum, and then put your hands over here and then strum. And that means really nothing to me. But what I hone in on is the chord center, and I pick up, okay, what chords are going to be in that key, and I work things out like that. And I'll show you tricks to doing some of that when we get to it. So with that, I think I'll just leave it for any questions about what we discussed tonight.
Okay. So what is this, every 2 weeks, the classes?
That's what we plan to start with. If it's a little bigger interest, sure, I'll try to make it every week, depending on what you guys want. I mean, this is kind of a tryout, so, and as long as you guys have the interest, and I'm happy to do it.
This is Tuesday, August 4th, 6 o'clock.
Shane, were you trying to say something?
Yeah, I was wondering, Melody, I think I asked you this before. You don't have any musical instruments at your house, right?
I have a keyboard, harmonica, and the tambourine. Yeah.
Oh, holy cow! You got a orchestra there.
So that'll be good. And when we
it is hard trying to memorize it, because that's why I've been learning and trying to do the notes in a half beat and trying to memorize it.
So, yeah, Melody, remember is it a full-size keyboard you have?
Yes.
If it's full-size keyboard, remember the very first white key all the way down at the left is what note?
A.
So why did they say it starts with the middle C? If you say it starts with the A.
Because middle C, and that's a great key to actually put a marker on, is middle C.
Yeah, because I've always heard that the middle C, but you say it starts at A. I always thought it started at C.
Middle C is a hand position that keyboardists use. They rest their right thumb on middle C. If you can wait till
next lesson.
Right, I got that. Yeah.
The next lesson, Melody, I'll explain all of that for you, so it'll really help you because I'm trying to make it relative to both keyboards and guitars. And obviously I'm a guitar player, but Shane's he's a piano player, and we'll be discussing both the black keys and the white keys and
the sharps and the flats.
Okay. And the sharps and the flats.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'm good.
You know, and a lot of people say, oh, well, you know, you can't learn an instrument without seeing it. And that's not true. I mean, ear training is a big part of it. And I think actually you'll learn your instrument even better without looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to feel it anyway. And once you get to just feeling it, then you won't have to look at anything to find a key. Your fingers will go there.
It just automatically go, almost
Yeah.
like typing. Yeah.
And that's where you want to get
Yeah.
anyway. You want to be able to just feel the instrument. So, you know, and I'll teach as many tricks as I have to for not being able to see things on how you can get at information and get comfortable.
Okay.
I mean, Shane's the one with the perfect pitch over there.
Yeah.
I know. I needed him in my theory classes. This is all brush up for me, and my theory is really rusty.
Mhm.
My theory's pretty rusty too.
This is great.
Well,
Very cool.
So
Well, we got it recorded, so if you want to review it, and like I said, I will be putting together kind of like a syllabus, you know, and I probably will put some notes out for each section. That way, you don't have to write near as much down, and we can discuss it a little more. I can email it or something like that. Well, guys, thank you very much, and
Thank you.
you know, like I said, if Melody, put
Yeah.
together any questions you have for next round. Same with you, Randy, Shane.
will do.
And
Sure.
I'll try to answer them the best I can. And if I can't, I guarantee you that the next meeting I will have them answered for you. But I think that's a good start.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Sounds
I-
great.
You're welcome.
Thank
I
you,
got
Jim.
lots of notes.
You're
Thanks,
welcome. All right. I'll talk to you guys soon.